Hey guys, welcome to vlog number 7. Today what we're going to walk you through is the process that we go through before we build a lake. So a client comes to us and says, hey, we'd like to build a lake somewhere out here, or we're looking at a farm and we find a lake site. What we're going to go through today is that process between, hey, we found a spot that may work, all the way to dozers on the ground pushing dirt. So we had one recently. We were out at a farm and saw a spot that we thought would be good, so we decided to use that for the vlog. It turned out to not be the perfect example because we stopped about halfway through this process, but that's why we do this process, to make sure that we've done our research and due diligence and make sure that the thing is going to work. The numbers are going to make sense. It's going to hold water and all that stuff. So it didn't work how we thought it would, because we thought these lakes were going to work and we ended up pulling the plug on them. But we'll walk you through that process anyway. So the first step is identifying a site, and that can be done a few ways. You can you can go to like a My Topo or Google and plug in the topo lines and find a spot that you think would work for a lake, or simply be out at the farm and see a spot that may work. We'll hop right in, and Ryan found one while he was working on one of our investors' farms on a project that we had going a couple months ago.
All right, so we're out here at one of our investors' farms. We were clearing to get some more tillable for him, and we noticed an area for a possible lake site. So John and I are out here today to set our benchmark and try to shoot some elevations to get our established water lines at full pool, so we can bring the client out here to look at it and he can visualize with our flags all the way around for us to have the established water line, and then move forward from there.
Second step, once we've identified the site, is to get a transit out there and shoot laser, throw some flags down so you can visually see where that water level would be. You can flip step 2 and 3. We like to get out there and look at the flags first before we involve anybody else, just so we can rationalize whether or not to move forward. So we get the laser out, we shoot potential water lines just so we can visualize it. And decide there's no rocket science to this. We just look at it and say, yeah, it's a cool lake, or it's not a cool lake. And so we do that. We get the flags out. Typically we'll bring the client out so he can check it out and make that decision to move on to step 3. Step 3 is an important step because that's where this whole process often comes to a halt. It's super important though, because if you skip this, you may end up building something that doesn't work. So this is the analytics stage, and what we do here is, we know where our flags are. So we have a program. We can come back into our office and plug in roughly, it's not exact, where we think those flags are. It'll spit out a size, so we know, hey, this lake's going to be a 2-acre lake or a 10-acre lake. And then what we do is we throw that on like a little map, like a little graphic, and send it to the NRCS. And they're extremely helpful in helping us calculate watershed. Okay, so we sent those numbers in. We got a reply. We were dealing with Joe Spence out of the Knox County office. Great to work with. Only took him a day or two to get back with us. But what we are looking for is enough watershed to maintain that water level in the lake. So that ideal range, at least from what we have experienced, is that 20 to 1, even up to that 30 to 40 to 1 seems okay. We sent those in. We sent in 2 spots that we looked at. The first was going to be for a 6-acre lake, and found that the maximum drainage area was 42 acres. So you do the quick math, and 42 acres feeding into 6, that's about a 7 to 1 ratio. So I've seen people build lakes with 7 to 1 and they go okay, but it's a little too risky for us. So the drainage area was not there. We needed, if we wanted a 6-acre lake and we were shooting for a 20 to 1 ratio, that needed to be about 120 acres of drainage area. So that just didn't happen. So we essentially stopped the process at that point. The same thing happened on the other one. By our eyes, we thought there was going to be enough drainage area, but that's why you go through this step. We sent it in, and the second lake was a little smaller pond, 4 acres, still a good pond, and so we were shooting for about 80 acres of runoff. and it was only 22. So it was only about a 6 to 1, 5.5 to 1 ratio. So again, not enough runoff for this particular pond to work. So we, pulled the plug on this one as well. It doesn't always mean that once you get these numbers that there's not alternate solutions, but from an investment standpoint, especially when you're just improving a property to resell it, it becomes pretty expensive to do those things. So in this instance, we pulled the plug on this step. But again, it's a very important step to go through because it tells you whether or not it's going to work. So if we were to skip this step and build it and spend 80, 100 grand on 2 ponds, and then they wouldn't fill up the way that our client wanted, we'd have a pretty angry client on our hands. So a very important step. So the rest of the steps that I'll go through, just kind of conceptual because we didn't have to do it on this project, but we do them all the time. So if the analytics would have came out okay and the numbers were fine, what we do from there is we design it. And that essentially means how long is the dam, what size top do we want, what slopes do we want, how many cubic yards of dirt is that, do we want riprap on the front, what sort of overflow, do we want any graded spots around the outside for picnic tables or whatever it is. We design what the customer wants so we have some numbers, something in hand to give to contractors, excavators, that sort of thing, which leads to the next step, which is pricing the project. So once we have all that information from the design, it's very easy for us to hand it over to 2, 3, 4 different contractors that we work with and trust in that area. So it's an easy step, but an important one. You give it to people. They price it out and send the stuff back to you. The next step is just deciding, do you want to go with all of it? Do you want to go with part of it? Is it more than you have in the budget? Is it not worth the investment on your property? A lot of things to consider there. And we go over all that with our clients, but that 6th step is to just decide. So at that point, you pick what you want to do, which we're involved in that step fairly heavily. And the last step is if you decide to move on, we schedule it and then we manage it. On this particular one, we got about halfway through and pulled the plug, but that's why you do this. Again, you don't want to waste money. You want to know, you want to have all the information so you make the best decision possible. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you're in the market to build a lake, get in touch with us. We'll go through the process with you. It's a no-cost deal until we decide to do the project. And we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have another vlog out shortly. Thanks for watching.